Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post-game live after the Warriors get their 12th win of their season, third straight in the NBA Cup, moving to 3-0 there with a 112-108 victory over the New Orleans Pelicans at Smoothie King Center on Friday. Not overly comfortable, it must be said. It was a little bit more stressful there at the end. I can see Daniel Hall already commenting saying, okay, I know it's easy to troll, but is there actually something to the NBA Cup making games more intense? Because end of the fourth felt like playoff intensity. I think there's something more to the NBA Cup. I still don't wholeheartedly think it's anything massive, but I think it's just a close game at the end. And like that just brings intensity in itself. I don't think it was necessarily the fact it was an NBA Cup game. Maybe there's something to that. But yeah, it did get too close for comfort there from a Warriors standpoint. They seemed to have the game in control, I suppose, with a minute to go. And then, unfortunately, you get a couple of scenarios. You had two straight possessions with Draymond missing two free throws. And then the following possession after Trey Murphy 3 cut the margin from 5 to 2, Draymond turns the ball over, and then the Pelicans have a shot to either tie or take the lead. Ends up with a Trey Murphy wing 3-point attempt, which rims off. And even then, Draymond gets the rebound, but he kind of loses it. There's a foul call. Fortunately, the Pelicans review. Takes a while there. Eventually, obviously, it's said that it's the right call, and there was a foul. And then Draymond goes to the line, makes the first, misses the second, able to get his own offensive rebound, goes back to the line again. So after that Trey Murphy missed, the game was again back in. Once the foul call was confirmed as the right one, then we could all kind of breathe a sigh of relief again, because it also took New Orleans' last time out away from them. But yes, from a Warriors standpoint, you come into this game against the Pelicans team without Zion, without DeJounte Murray, without CJ McCollum, without Herb Jones, without Jose Alvarado, without Eve Messi, who's been a contributing player for them as a rookie big man. Like, that's 6 blokes, right? 6 key guys who could all foreseeably play 20-plus minutes. And then in the way of Herb Jones, Zion, DeJounte Murray, CJ, you got 4 guys there who could all foreseeably play 30-plus minutes. So this is a real second, third string Pelicans team. And so for it to come down to a possession where Trey Murphy III has the chance and the opportunity to win the game, not a great performance from the Warriors, it must be said. But at the end of the day, like I keep saying over recent episodes, it's a result-based business, and no one at the end of the season is going to look back at this game on November 22 and think about the fact that the Pelicans were missing all their players. It's simply, did you win the game or not? And did that contribute to your overall final record? Then yes, like, you won the game, and that's all that matters. Kalen Key says, love the streams, my guy. Wiggins is back to all-star form. All right, I need to put my hand up. I flat out need to put my hand up. I did not think that Andrew Wiggins was capable of getting back to being his all-star level form from 2021-22. I was out on it. I just thought too much time had passed, too much time where Wiggins was just not that level of player, that I just didn't think he'd get back to that. Now, yes, he's still young enough. He's like 29, 30 or whatever. So it wasn't as if, the guy's old and he's washed now. It's just a case of looking at it and seeing his 10-year career and seeing that 21-22 season as really one that was out of the box. Now, he was good to start 2022-23 if you go back to it, and then he obviously missed a heap of time in the second half of the season. He just never was. Well, he came back late in that season. Then last year he was just flat out awful for basically the entire season. So I didn't think he could get back to it. And I think it really has a lot to be, it says a lot about a guy's mindset, because I don't think he necessarily lost it physically. I think it was more so just mentally and emotionally, his focus wasn't on basketball. And it seems this season like that has completely changed. Again, the words I say, active, engaged, like he's bringing it every game, right? And so he goes for another 30 points, a season high 30 points in this one. And he's the difference in the game from a Warriors standpoint. 9 of 14 shooting from the floor. The biggest thing for me, a perfect 9 of 9 from the free throw line, Wiggs goes 9 of 9 from the line in a game that you win ultimately by 4, and it was perhaps closer than that again because Murphy had a shot at the end. That is, we talked about last week or earlier this week, with the Clippers loss and the missed free throws haunting the Warriors there. Well, they kind of won the game almost from the free throw line. The fact they go 22 of 29. Yes, Draymond missed some down the stretch, which could have come back to haunt them had Murphy made that shot. But I have to put my hand up and apologize to Wiggs. This has been unbelievable this season. I was looking at some stats, the other day. So even before this game, just disregard this game for a second. Andrew Wiggins in his first 12 games had 7 games of 15 or more points, in the first 12 games. Do you know when his 7th game of 15 or more points came last season? It was January 15. It was Golden State's 40th game of the season. That was Andrew Wiggins' 7th game of 15 plus points. And he'd already done it this season in 12 games. And 15 plus points, it's not out of the ordinary. It's not extraordinary. Andrew Wiggins goes for 15. No one's, screaming about it. But it just goes to show you the consistency and the production that he's bringing this season. And then you talk about a game like today where that first quarter, not sure if I've seen Wiggs more confident and better offensively than that first, 13 points. I think he was a perfect 6 of 6 shooting or something, 3 of 3 from deep. It was glorious. It was wonderful. And even he didn't actually make that many field goals from then on, but just the aggressiveness, the one in the fourth where he goes into his tornado move kind of thing to the rim, hooks up with, I think it was Robinson Earl's arm, and then flips it in with one hand, a kind of a deep floater that banked in, and then plus the foul. And he just looked every time he went to the free throw line, he looked confident. He looked like a guy that went there thinking, I'm just going to knock these down. And we haven't been able to say that about Wiggs. He's stepping into his 3-ball like a guy that looks like he's going to make 3. Same with Draymond too. Credit to Draymond only goes 2 of 6 from the line. Slightly disappointing, yes, but goes 3 of 4 from 3. He's stepping into threes as if he's just going to knock them down. So the improvement in those two guys and their shooting from beyond the arc, and particularly Wiggins and his just improvement in general, not just as an offensive guy, but as one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. The improvement in him individually is clearly the biggest individual factor in why the Warriors are now 12-3 on the season and have surprised so many. And I have to put my hand up. I didn't think this was possible. And again, I think it comes down to just the emotional and mental state of Andrew Wiggins and being able to fully focus on basketball. I know personally, having lost my old man, and I don't want to speak for Wiggs, but what I will say is I went through a period where my old man was obviously ill before he passed away. And there is almost, after your loved one does pass, there is almost a sense of, you never want to say relief because you want them around, but it does allow you to concentrate and focus your time and energy on other things as opposed to when you're dealing with their illness and being by their bedside or doing things for them on a consistent basis. It allows you to put your time and concentration into other things. And so that my history of that, I can understand why. And I don't want to speak for Wiggs and say this is what he is, is happening for him right now. But it wouldn't surprise me if it's okay, his old man passed away just before the season. And I initially thought, okay, that could really impact him, and it's hard to put expectations on him after that just happening. But it may have been a case of, okay, that period of my life where my old man was sick and going through things, that is now over, and I can get back to basketball and playing. And of course, you would much rather his old man being around watching you play and stuff like that. No doubt about that. But from my personal experience, I think that might be a factor in all of this. Miguel Teacher says Wiggins was clutch with the free throws. Yeah, absolutely. He 9 of 9. That's the difference in the game in the end. I thought he was extraordinary, and I couldn't be happier for him. For some reason, I was just recalling, the Vince McMahon memes where it's someone asks you recalling such and such. It's like, I remember those memes about Andrew Wiggins. It's like, Dad, tell me about 2021, 22 Andrew Wiggins, like that part of that meme. And the fact that like he's resurfaced into that player now, I couldn't be happier for him. And it's just obviously so important to the Warriors. Double Marsh says another W for the Warriors. Yep, that's all that matters. Again, not overly convincing. You would have come into this game thinking the Warriors could take better care of the Pelicans and maybe get a blowout win, particularly with their first back-to-back coming up tomorrow against San Antonio Spurs, which sounds like Wemby might be out, but they're still like CP3, Harrison Barnes, former Warriors. You know they'll be up and about trying to get revenge. So, yeah, it would have been nice to be able to rest Steph and Wiggs and Draymond kind of in the fourth quarter, but that wasn't the case. Just a couple other things here from an individual standpoint. I think I saw on social media quite a lot of fans getting frustrated about Steph and his lack of shot attempts and not being aggressive enough himself from a shooting perspective. So he goes 6 of 13 from the game. Sorry, not 6 of... No, yes, was he 6 of 13? I think he might have been. I've got the Pelican stats up, sorry. Yes, he was 6 of 13, 4 of 7 from 3, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, 19 points. So this comes after the other day against Pelicans where he had just 10 shot attempts. I think the beauty with Steph is that he's not necessarily going to absolutely force things like some other stars would, and that's what's made him so special over his career, is that he's willing to be unselfish. He's willing to get other guys involved. You know, I think Richard Jefferson on the ESPN broadcast said it early in the game where he kind of gave the ball up to Wiggins in transition. Wiggs attacked, got fouled, went to the free throw line, and Richard Jefferson was like, you know, look at Steph giving up the ball in that situation to a teammate in a better position. If Wiggs doesn't get fouled there or isn't aggressive, then, you know, we know Steph's going to cut off the ball, try and, you know, backdoor cut to the rim or relocate for a three. Like, he's so good and so unselfish in that aspect that, particularly in a game like today, I think if, I don't know, maybe you could question whether or not he should have tried to be more aggressive down the stretch where the game did get a little bit tight. But other than that, I think you've got to try and pick and choose your moments. And Steph, I think, is someone who does, to a degree, like, he'll sense a moment where he really has to put his imprint on the game. And I think a game like this one against an injury-ravaged Pelicans team, he probably understands that, hey, I can try and get my teammates involved here a little bit more, as opposed to, you know, you look at a game like the Thunder or a game like the Mavericks, those back-to-back games where he had 36 and 37 points, and he sees that as, okay, this is the time for me to make a statement on behalf of my team as well, because we as a team are trying to make a statement against, you know, one of the best teams in the Western Conference, and another game where it was clearly a huge one given Clay's homecoming. So I think he picks and chooses his moments sometimes, and I think he probably saw this one as an occasion where, okay, I can try and get guys involved. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I think Andrew Wiggins going for 30 points and continuing his form revival and continuing to build his confidence, that's probably more important for Golden State than if Steph went for 30 and Wiggins had 19, right? So I think this is actually, yes, you would have liked it to be a bit more comfortable at the end, but I think this is probably a better result for the Warriors in terms of those two guys, and again, Wiggs building his confidence. Daniel says, I'm rooting so hard for Wiggs, but not going to lie, I still feel irrationally scared he's going to fall back into poor form. Is it ridiculous to want to sell high right now when he's playing so well? I'm not going to entertain Andrew Wiggins trade conversations right now after that performance. Let's say that for another time. I feel bad. I don't want to do that. I just want to celebrate this performance, right? I get where you're coming from, but I just want to celebrate this performance. I'll answer your first question in terms of you feeling irrationally scared he's going to fall back into poor form. Yeah, I mean, it's always a possibility, but I think even his bad games at the moment, he's bringing defense and he still looks confident. And sorry, when I mean bad games, I mean bad shooting games. He's still bringing defense. He's still looking confident. It's, as I suppose spoke about before in terms of those numbers, in terms of like this was his 8th game out of 14 now, or sorry, out of 13, 8th game out of 13 with at least 15 or more points. So even his bad shooting games, he's still managing more often than not, obviously, to get to 15 points, as opposed to last season. I was looking at the game logs yesterday. It's like single figure score. Let me go I'm going to look this up. I'll just read you out Andrew Wiggins' start to last season, because I think we forget sometimes just how awful it was. So this was his first 12. So that's this season. Let me get his game logs up from last season. All right. This was it last season. 10 points on 4 of 12, 11 on 5 of 13, 13 on 4 of 10, 9 on 4 of 8, 14 on 6 of 10, 17 on 6 of 11. Some of these numbers actually aren't too bad. He's just not taking that many attempts. Then it starts to get pretty bad. 8 on 3 of 9, 4 on 2 of 9, 11 on 4 of 13, 13 on 6 of 12, 6 on 3 of 7, 9 on 4 of 15, 12 on 6 of 13. Has a really good game against the Thunder, 31 points. I think that was his season high. Then he goes 12, 11, 10 again. Then he has another 29. Then he goes 9, 12, 3, 4, 14. Sorry, 9, 14, 25, 6. It was just, he was averaging like 10 points. And it was just really I don't know, just not good at all, obviously. And just wasn't good at all I think it got a little bit better towards the end of last season, but still, I don't think any of us would have expected him to come out this season and see a player who was, he's averaging close to 20 points a game on I think he might be over 40%. I know going into this game, he was 16.2 points on 47.3% from the floor and 39.3% from three. So after this game, where he goes 3 of 5 from 3, 9 of 14, I'm assuming those numbers will probably go to close to 50-40. That's, if you've got a two-way guy, athletic two-way guy who's 6'7", who's your primary perimeter defender on a team that is top 4 in the league defensively, and he's shooting 50% from the floor and 40% from three-point range, that is a super valuable player. And I also, maybe the Warriors just thought, okay, we're going to get this version of Wiggins again at some point. And that's why, yes, he was in trade speculation. He simply had to be. That's how bad his form was. But it was always a case of, if this guy does get it back, he's so valuable to the team. He's so valuable. And I always said it. I was like, it's hard. It's hard to find Andrew Wiggins trade, because his value to the Warriors, if he can ever even get close to his best again, is so much more valuable than what he is to other teams. And we got to a stage where you would have had to have given up assets to get off Andrew Wiggins' contract. After when he signed that deal, if this form from Andrew Wiggins is just who he is now for the next couple of years, which again, I'm not sure that's necessarily going to be the case. But if he's 17 points a game on 40% three-point shooting, then all of a sudden that contract goes from looking damn awful to hugely team-friendly again. And again, that's massive for the Warriors. So I'm so happy for him and so proud of him as well with his performances so far. Rutherford Myler says 500K per player right should have been good motivation. Yeah, you get 500,000 if you win the NBA Cup. Means more to some players than others. Like if you look at across the Warriors roster, Wiggs, Draymond, Steph, Buddy Hield, Slow-Mo, not necessarily meaning too much to a whole bunch of those guys, but Trace Jackson-Davis, Lindy Waters, Kuminga and Moody, Pods means something to those guys. So yeah, I mean, I still don't like that as a incentive, to be honest. I think the league needs to find something more basketball related rather than financial to try and incentivize the NBA Cup. But at the end of the day, it's a basketball game. It counts as one of your regular season games. You want to go out there and win. And I think that's almost more important to me than the Warriors. The Warriors moving to 12-3 is almost more important to me than moving to 3-0 in the NBA Cup, right? And I think if Denver beat Dallas in this later game, then the Warriors will be straight through to the quarterfinals, because they would have sewn up first spot in their group even before the final game. What is the score in that game? We'll just check it here. It is 52-44 Dallas with 5 minutes to go in the second quarter, Nikola Jokic is back for them. Clay, just looking at Clay's numbers because I'm always interested. He's 0 points, 0 of 4, 0 of 2 so far. Quentin Grimes has 10. Of course, Luka out at the moment. So hopefully the Nuggets can win that game. Jokic has 13, 5, and 4, just doing what he does despite missing a few games. So, I mean, the Warriors are in a good spot here to try and get to Las Vegas and try and make a run at the NBA Cup. But I'm still, maybe I'm a little bit more excited about it because you can actually see a pathway here. Like the Warriors have one hand on being in the quarterfinals, but I don't know. It's still not necessarily huge for me. I'm just more so worried about their overall record and trying to maintain top spot on the Western Conference, and if not top spot, at least in that top 2, top 3. Anything more from this guy? Well, a few more comments here. Double March says the benefit of having 5 Warriors from the 22 championship team is huge. Steph, Dre, Wiggs, GP2, and Loon on a lesser level, Moody and JK. Yeah, I think the Warriors are once again showing how important team chemistry is. And I was listening to Bill Simmons' latest podcast a little bit and talking about the 76ers. And obviously they've got their huge issues with Joel Embiid and Paul George. And they did win today, to be fair, albeit over Brooklyn. So it's not a huge win. But I do think like they're having significant issues because they just completely remade their team last offseason. And the difficulty in trying to set a culture and trying to set a playing system under those circumstances is quite difficult, as opposed to the Warriors, who have, as you just mentioned, their 7 guys who are still on the team from their championship squad. And in the way of Steph and Draymond and Loon, you've got guys who are 2 4-time champions, 1 3-time champion. They've all been there for, well, Steph and Draymond clearly over a decade now, and Looney nearly a decade. So there's definitely something to that. Rutherford Myler says, like Draymond said, it is a chance to win something. Yep, I've said it here before. Like, you put anything in front of these elite athletes who are super competitive, and that's how they get to how good they are. Like, they're going to try and win it. Doesn't matter what it is. Like, you could go and get a $2 plastic trophy from down the road and put it in front of them, and they're probably going to try and win that. Like, that's just how competitive these guys are, particularly guys like Steph and Draymond, who, again, the financial aspect isn't necessarily a motivation, but just winning anything, lifting any trophy, I think is very important to them. Again, just some things from an individual perspective in this game. Nice of Trace to finish a couple of layups with his right hand after my podcast episode, kind of criticizing him for being so left-hand dominant. I think both of those layups were like uncontested. I still haven't seen him go to his right hand when there's a defender in front of him. Like, he's always going left in that situation. But yeah, I did make note of those couple of right hand layups. I'm not necessarily going to put them in the book and say that, oh, this guy can finish with either hand. It was more so, he had one in the first quarter, little pass over the top, again, right-handed, uncontested layup on the other side of the rim. And then one in the third quarter, I think it might have been, where he got a stop on one end and then outran his defender. Should have been an and one. Finished with his right hand in transition. He kind of got pushed from behind at the same time. I was more impressed, like, just his energy to get going, obviously running in transition. That's how he's going to get his points. Again, he's 4 of 9 from the floor. One of those was I think it might have been a 3-point attempt from the corner as the shot clock was expiring. So I'm not going to include that. But even still, like 4 of 8, I still have concerns there. But otherwise, like 9 points, 8 rebounds in 18 minutes with a block shot. Like, I thought he was fine. I thought it was good. Not much of an opposition when you've got like Daniel Tice out there and, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. Like, not too much you'd expect Trace to hold his own. He's going to obviously face far greater challenges. Double Marsh says, I guess TJD is a fan of Golden State with mates. Maybe he listens. And thought, you know what, I'm going to go out and show him, make a couple with my right hand. Again, if he listens to this on the replay, then TJD, maybe make a couple with your right hand that are actually contested. Then I might take notice of that. But I think the Warriors still have an issue, and I'm going to be interested to see if there's a change here. So Steve ends the game with Pods in the backcourt next to Steph. Lindy Waters plays 15 minutes as a starting 2 guard. Doesn't score. 0 of 3 from the floor. 0 of 3 from 3. 2 assists. a turnover, -1 in 15 minutes and 10 seconds. Warriors still have an issue there to me in what their starting two guard is going to be moving forward. And maybe Pod's closing the game is an indication of him potentially being the next in line. And obviously throughout the offseason, we knew that he was always going to be a potential candidate to be that backcourt partner for Steph. I actually thought Pods was pretty good. I thought it was one of his better games. Now, I know he went 0-5 from three. And a couple of the 3-point attempts weren't particularly close. Like he had an air ball. He's clearly getting frustrated with his shooting and the inefficiencies there at the moment. I just thought he was more aggressive and just a little bit more impactful, I suppose, than what he has been in recent games. He has 11 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 5 of 11, as I said, missed all his 3-point attempts. I just thought he did more stuff than what he has done. And I thought it was a nice bounce back game from him again, albeit he missed all his 3-point attempts. He had like this, was it the first quarter where he had like a pull-up baseline mid-range jump shot? Now, I think he kind of took it a little bit because the shot clock was winding down a little bit, but he pulled up pretty confidently on that and made it. And I thought, oh, okay, that's the kind of shot you want to see, where it's like too many times he kind of crab dribbles around these screens and then he just picks the ball up and he's got kind of nowhere to go. And he's not looking for his shot enough when he gets around these screens sometimes. And he's also not really playmaking from there sometimes either. So to see him like take a pull up mid range, I like that. And like he spoke about plenty of times during the offseason about trying to eliminate like floaters and stuff like that and actually taking some pull up mid ranges and pull up threes. Haven't really seen it. Have not really seen that in his game. And again, I think that's a confidence thing at the moment with his shot just not being there. But I think ideally, again, if this guy is going to be, average double-digit scoring, average, 15-plus points eventually at some point in his career, he's going to have to bring some of those things into his game. And again, I kind of took note of that baseline pull-up jump shot and thought, okay, yeah, that's the kind of shot where, again, it's a mid-range jumper. Maybe it's not the ideal shot, but if he can showcase that he can make that, well, at least that's like a threat that, again, shot clock winding down, he can get to his spot and knock that down. I like that. And I just thought it was a better game from him. I know he was -3. The plus-minus wasn't there. We know he's the plus-minus king usually. But I thought it was a better game. And maybe Steve needs to go to him in the starting lineup. If it's not him, maybe Moses. But Moses had that nice reverse layup or underhand layup where he got the and one on Ingram. Aside from that, didn't do a whole lot. I still think the Warriors could potentially make a move there to try and find an upgrade in next to Steph in the backcourt. Interesting to read Brett Siegel of Clutch Points, his report earlier today, suggesting that Dante DiVincenzo might be available. If that is at all possible, then the Warriors should probably kick the tires on it. Now, I'm a bit hesitant because Dante, you'd be putting obviously more long-term money on the books with Dante still being under contract for another 2 years after this one, albeit it's a great contract. It's a great contract. It just doesn't allow you the flexibility necessarily to go into free agency. You would also be giving, like, you could trade Melton, but then why would the Timberwolves want Melton when he's obviously not going to be useful for them this season and could just leave in free agency? Then from a Warriors standpoint, would you really want to give up Melton and probably at least a first-round pick for DiVincenzo when maybe you could just try and ride out the season and try and bring Melton back in free agency on a cheaper deal? I don't know. I'd certainly, if it was at all possible, though, I would explore it because I've said it before on this podcast that I think Melton, when he's in his 6 games he did play, reminded me of Dante, just in terms of this like versatile guard who is a high-level 3-point shooter, can handle the ball a little bit. I think Melton was probably a better playmaker and defender. Dante, the slightly better, at least more high-volume 3-point shooter, but very similar players. And so if you could get into a situation where you could trade for Dante, again, I don't think the Timberwolves would do it, but I know Siegel kind of in his report said that Dante's maybe not happy with his role right now, and the fact that he was a starter clearly with the Knicks last season, made the third most threes in the league last year, and now he's been relegated to like a seventh, eighth man role. Right. So I can understand why there might be some issues there, and we know the chemistry issues with Minnesota and what happened yesterday in terms of the whole Randall Gobert situation and them losing down the stretch there to the Toronto Raptors. Again, if that's at all available in terms of trading for Dante, maybe it's something you think about. Dublin Marsh says, I question why Knicks traded Dante. What's up there? Well, they just had to do it to bring in Towns. They had to. It was, by the sounds of it, they were willing to include Randall and other pieces for months in trying to get to Cat, and then they eventually relented because Minnesota wanted Dante. And I think, given they wanted him so much, I'd be surprised if they went out and traded him, by the February 6th deadline, after a few months into his first season in Minnesota. I'd be surprised if, and to be fair, Dante's not having a great season. And yeah, again, maybe he's in a situation where he's not thrilled about his role right now, but I'd be surprised. But again, if it's possible, do you give up an asset to get Dante DiVincenzo, or are you in a situation where that doesn't help you enough and you should want to retain your assets to try and make a bigger move at a different point down the stretch? I don't know. All I do know is that he would be a better starting two guard for me right now than whatever the Warriors have on their roster, because I think he's clearly a better player than Lindy Waters. I think he's clearly a better player than Moses Moody. I think I'd prefer to have, he's a better player than Pods right now. And regardless, I'd want Pods to stay in like a backup point guard role, playing 20 to 22 minutes a game as he is at the moment. So he would be an upgrade on what the Warriors have, and I think he'd be the ideal because we know he fits a system. Played a year here, played a really good season here, rehabilitated his value to the point where the Warriors couldn't match what he ultimately got from the Knicks in free agency, which is now looking like a fantastic team-friendly deal. And again, one of the reasons why I don't think Minnesota will give him up. But can the Warriors get in that conversation? I don't know. Anything else from this game? Kuminga was interesting. He played 20 minutes, 3 of 10, missed his 2 threes, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 7 points. Better second half than the first half. I thought there were times there in the first 2.5 quarters where I don't know. It's tough. I think there's still times where he wants to show off a little bit. And I understand it. Like, he didn't get his contract prior to the deadline. He's going to be a restricted free agent next offseason. He's still in a situation where he's trying to show his wares to not only the Warriors, but also prospective teams in free agency. It's like, this is what I can do, and here's what I want, kind of thing, in terms of, role on the team and what he wants in free agency as well from a salary standpoint. And sometimes I think that gets in the way of the team a little bit. I do think it's like, whenever he takes off the dribble threes, I just know Steve's on the sidelines pulling his hair out thinking, WTF, like, what are we doing? Like, whenever you see Kuminga step back threes or whatever, it's like, no. And I think it's a situation of, again, him trying to show off what he's got and what he's improved on and stuff like that. But sometimes he does stuff that kind of goes against, I think, what the team wants. And I think that might have had something to do with the fact that he was limited to just 15 minutes the other night. But the last quarter and a half, or at least late in the third quarter there, he had a little stretch where it was much more improved, where it was like being dynamic again, getting downhill, getting to the rim, using his athleticism, all the stuff we know he does best, rather than settling for jump shots, particularly jump shots from beyond the perimeter. So I don't know. I liked his aggressiveness. I thought it was just a weird game from him. I'm not saying it was terrible, not saying it was awful, not saying it was great either. Like, just a lot of general Jonathan Kuminga stuff. Some good stuff, some bad stuff. That's kind of the trade-off you get with him. And we'll see what his minutes look like moving forward. Kyle Anderson, 4 minutes, 51 seconds. Surprised Steve didn't go back to him. Had some uncharacteristic turnovers in the first half, but interesting. Loon only played 14 minutes. GP2 plays 16 minutes. I think they were trying to give Wiggs, like they kind of knew Wiggs had it going offensively and that they needed him offensively. So they tried to uh, rest Wiggins a little bit defensively instead of having him guard Ingram the whole game, like try and use GP2 a little bit to guard Ingram, which, GP2 is obviously giving up some size, but we know how good he is defensively. So again, Steve going to a 12-man rotation. Buddy Hield plays 19 minutes, 3 of 10. Does have 12 points, had 6 rebounds as well. His shooting has obviously come off slightly, but the Warriors are still winning games, and that's all that matters. And it's actually positive that there's some improvement here in some of these guys. Like Buddy hasn't been good for the last 4 or 5 games now. Pods is obviously, his shooting's been awful. Kuminga, couple of quiet games. So Moody, couple of quiet games. So there's some room for improvement here from young players who you think should improve as we go along. But we'll wait and see. We've been going for nearly 36 minutes now. I'll finish it up shortly. Double munches. I figured Anderson must be having some pain or something. Yeah, he has been dealing with the neck spasms or whatever. So maybe that is a situation we won't know. And we'll see what happens if the Warriors, could they rest some guys tomorrow against the Spurs? Possibly. I don't think that would be out of the realm of possibility. Like, could Draymond just get a rest? Like, Draymond plays 30 minutes in this game. He's played every game so far this season. Is it one where you just say, yeah, just get a night off and maybe start Kuminga and let Kuminga roll for 30 minutes against a young Spurs team? Wouldn't be surprised. That's the case. Steph's a bit different because Steph missed those 3 games. So he already had a bit of not a rest because he was obviously recovering from his ankle issue, but the rest of the body got a bit of a rest during that period as well. He has been dealing with the knee bursitis. So would it be surprising if Steph and Draymond just rested tomorrow? No, I don't think it would be, but we'll wait and see. The Warriors obviously want to try and keep winning and retain top spot in the Western Conference. The Mavericks now out to a 20-point lead at halftime over the Nuggets, 73-53. Clay has 1 point. Quentin Grimes, 10. Kyrie, 15. 15 for Najee Marshall off the bench. Jokic, still a one-man operation, 19 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists in the first half. And I'm going to finish it up there. Thank you very much to those of you that commented, or if you're watching back on replay on YouTube or via the podcast feed. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that would be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at POC252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. You can follow us Golden State with Mates on Instagram, TikTok as well. I'll be back for another post-game live at a very similar time tomorrow as the Warriors try and go 13-3 it would be if they can get a win over the Spurs. Just a surprising start to the season. And this one's certainly down to Andrew Wiggins. Let's maybe go and have a cold one for him, I reckon, because he's been absolutely superb the last few games. Other than that, guys, thank you once again.